This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. It is 9:38. It should be 9:30, but Johnny Nelson was 7 minutes late.
Wow!
Anyway, delighted to be joined by...
Coming in the bus. Wait, dog's out. Great start. Come on.
You see, at least I've locked my dog out.
Already. It's classic.
He's late. He's late, and he doesn't even get organised.
What are you doing? Dave Caldwell, Adam Smith, and Johnny Nelson. Well, I'm astounded this happened, and only because of you, Johnny. And I said to Dave yesterday, it's Johnny that will let this down.
Wow. Well, you see, you're painting a really bad picture. I'm actually very organised, very driven. My timing is actually, wow. My timing is actually very proficient. And sometimes I just think, you just throw me in the book. Things just happen to me.
It's amazing, Kugan. He's kept the belts, just above him, behind him. You can see the.
What belts?
Yeah.
What belts? I actually was speaking because this month, on the 25th, this month is Brennan passed away 2 years ago, and I've got some pictures on my wall, and who sent me a picture? I've got a couple of pictures that were sent to me. One of Dave. I'll send you, Dave. You've got hair there, little spiky hair, and one of Brian Anderson. And so I sent forward a picture onto Brian Anderson, and he's astounded. I said, "You and Harold you've got a place in the wall in my house because you were part of the history. My history. I was fortunate enough to be in two peaks of our gym. One when Harold was around, Harold and Brian Anderson, because I'm obviously older, and then Dave, we all went through Nazareth there, Ramsden. It was all great, So I saw both sides of it. And so, but the ones that probably shaped me was when Harold and Brian were around, because they were the first stars for us, in Sheffield anyway. And Brian's really shocked that I've actually got his picture on my wall. I said, "You put my history, what are you talking about?" So, but it's just... He was nice. We just reminisced a little bit. But I have got a picture. I've sent you while we're on here, Dave. And so if your eyes get wider, I'll know exactly why.
Okay, so while Johnny's doing that, Johnny can only do one thing at a time, can't he? He wouldn't be able to hold
the conversation.
You can see the brain working, can't you, Coop?
Yes, I can. Listen, I'm academically astute.
You can't even look at the phone.
I'm looking at the phone. I'm with you.
Strange man you are, Johnny.
I can't find it.
Let's start by talking about, obviously, Eddie Hearn released some news over the weekend with his proposed idea for maximum fight camp, and the graphics look very adventurous, but it is Eddie Hearn, so whatever he's talking about and the proposals that we're seeing at whatever percent that is, look quite optimistic. I'll start with you, Dave. What do you think about that?
I think it's exciting. I mean, when he first told me about what his ideas were, I was like, listen, you can think what you want of him, whether you're his biggest fan or not, right? The man's relentless. He won't let anything stop him from what his ideas are and keeping his wheels turning for what he wants to do for his fighters and his company. And for those fighters that are willing to box behind closed doors, because not all fighters are wanting to do that and willing to do that, but for those fighters that are wanting to, this is exciting. And also, we're desperate for the sport to kick off again. We're desperate for careers to start moving. From my point of view as a coach and a manager, I'm getting phone calls from my fighters that I manage. I'm in day-to-day contact with my fighters that I coach, and they're all like, when do you think we'll be this? We're just waiting on this. And then when this news broke about what Eddie were planning, everyone's excited. They all want in. I mean, and it's a massive, massive plan. There's going to be so much strategy that goes into it. There's going to be a lot of hard work to make it all work. And also, fair play, it's a lot of money for each show to run. Bearing in mind you're not getting the ticket sales, just to set it up, it's a lot of money. All the procedures that have got to be put in for safety and quarantine, taking over hotels and things like that. That's a lot of money.
Adam, is the biggest surprise from what Eddie Hearn was saying from this plan, but the Povetkin White fight is going to feature in this plan, which we didn't know whether that was going to be the case from the outside. Obviously, it would have made more sense for some of the next-gen type shows to feature on this idea Eddie's got, but he wants to go in and involve Povetkin White in this as well.
As Dave says, Eddie Hearn's relentless, and he's always got a plan. He's always thinking, and he's got a great team at Matchroom, and they've come up with a very innovative idea. You know, the Matchroom grounds are fantastic. You know, the HQ there, obviously it was originally Eddie's house, and the offices have been there for a few years now. You know, I've been there many, many times. Yeah, Barry Hearn had his 70th there. It's a great spot, and it overlooks the city in the background. So, you know, it's a fantastic idea. It's a brilliant sort of thought. Obviously, there's a huge amount of practicalities to go before we can agree anything, before we can sort of progress with it. It's very much in its planning stages. I'm sure it will happen in hopefully July, August. But you know, we have to go through a lot of issues our end as well, of course, because there's the health and safety, most importantly, which is crucial for any, you know, broadcasters to get involved. Obviously, the medical side is, you know, that's Robert Smith's, operation of the board, and to make sure that we get the right doctors and anaesthetists and everything right. So we're only going to come back when everything's actually set and ready. So we've got to sort of, we're talking, you know, we're discussing, and I'm sure we'll come to agreement, and the proceeds will, I mean, it will happen, and I think it will be phenomenal when it does. But there are, you know, Eddie obviously, you know, loves to get his ideas out there, and rightly so. I think it's a brilliant one. I think, you know, to bring boxing back, as Dave says, everyone's missing it. We've got to bring it back safely and at the right time. But I think rather than just sort of, you know, put it in a studio show, which I think everyone, the studio sort of environment, which everyone would expect, I think to have this in the summer, you know, sort of taking the risk a little bit with the weather, but having this for a few weeks in the summer will be a fantastic start back, a kick back to boxing. Yes, it will be different. Yes, it will be behind closed doors, but I think it's a really interesting idea. And yeah, you know, you'll have some of the fighters coming back, maybe the younger ones first of all, but building up to something like a White Povetkin night. You know, it will be fantastic, because you've got to remember there were 3 box office events that were due to happen: White Povetkin, Taylor Serrano, and one in Manchester, Usyk Chisora, obviously Joshua Pulev. And you know, we can't forget those big fights as well, because that's what fans want to see. That, you know, the fighters at top level want to fight as much as the fighters at the junior level. So I think it's really good to mix and match and to build up to maybe something like that. So yeah, there's a few I's and T's to be crossed, etc., dotted and crossed still to get it over the line. But the idea is brilliant, and you know, boxing will be back at Matchroom HQ in I think in a really dramatic way, and it's up to the production elements and the greatness of the team at Matchroom to sort of come together. You know, our team and their team to devise a sort of fantastic look. But the most important thing, KUGAN, is that the fighters, the personnel, everyone that's involved in this is safe. So testing is hugely important. Social distancing is hugely important. So yeah, grand plans, but you know, just bring it back to reality slightly, that we've got a few things to get across the line first. But yes, I think when it happens, it will be amazing.
Johnny, it's not even a given that you'll be part of the production at Sky. I mean, if they're just going for their most important people during the time, are you even going to be there?
Yeah, I think I'll be probably sweeping that around the back, or prepping the water buckets for everybody. But you know what? I'm actually really excited, and I've got to repeat what Dave said. That you've got to rate Eddie Hearn. Love him or loathe him, you've got to rate him, because this guy's a complete workaholic. And he doesn't do it just behind closed doors. God knows what he does behind closed doors, but he's always on the ball. He's going to try now produce something. He's giving hope to fight fans and fighters as well, to say, look, we're back on the road again. I've been to Matchroom HQ. It's an absolutely beautiful place. I think it used to be their house, actually. And so to say he's going to bring it there, don't be surprised if this is the first of many events held there. Because I just think it's ingenious. I wonder what other kind of entertainment he's going to think up of surrounding the whole event. Because remember, we just saw some football on, I think it was yesterday, and there were no crowd, but they still got the event down, got on with the event. Boxing is probably going to be the same. I don't know how Eddie's going to do it, but I'm quite sure he's given fight fans hope. Of course, we've got to wait to see what the government say about letting this go or letting it happen. But he's ready. He's chomping at the bit. He's giving fighters hope. He's giving fans hope. And I'm not knocking any other promoter because I think Frank's a great promoter as well. But I think Eddie has now pushed it right out there to say, right, this is what's happening. I'm giving us all something to look forward to. I've given you a venue. I've given you possible competitors of our event. So he's lifted us all.
Adam, obviously to make these events work, it's going to be the bare minimum people required. So if you're not really required, you're not going to be at this event, whether that be in production or part of training teams, etc. So from a typical Sky production, how many people do you use and how many people do you think it will be allowed to kind of be at the venue from a Sky perspective?
Yeah, look, that's all being worked on at the moment. Obviously, it's not just boxing, it's every sport that we're looking to bring back. You know, as Johnny said, I can't believe he actually watched some of the German football over the weekend. Yeah, football is coming back in Germany. My scholar at Sky, Daniel Altmaier, is playing tennis again in Germany in sort of, you know, sterile environments in close competition, you know, with local players. So sports coming back. Golf, there was an event on yesterday, last night with Rory McIlroy. So things are starting to move again, but we all know that the sort of, you know, the earliest really in the UK that major sport will come back will be June. I guess that, you know, they'll look at, Eddie will look at darts and snooker and all of those sports, and football obviously is key to us. Is that going to come back mid to late June? We all want the Premier League to return, Liverpool to be crowned champions. Dave can't wait for that. And I think by July we'll have probably cricket as well and maybe Formula One. So it's going to come back slowly, and then boxing will slip in behind it. I think I've said to you before that because it's a dangerous sport and because, you know, the doctors and anaesthetists have to be there, you know, we have to absolutely be right. And Robert Smith will be, you know, absolutely all over that and will only come back with his pace. As far as production goes, you know, Ed Robinson, the team, and Frank Smith, they're talking at the moment. And yeah, there'll be small numbers from everybody. Everybody's going to be affected by this, you know. I think no MC in the ring, you know, the ring card girls, all that side of it. I think I'm hearing judges maybe virtual. I don't know. They may be at home. They may be there. I'm not sure quite on every little aspect at the moment. But from a sort of matchroom side and a Sky side, yeah, it will be kept to a minimum. There'll be some production staff will be probably based at home still. You know, working from home is working at the moment. There's a lot of things like this going on, vMix Zooms that are broadcasting from people's houses. I think, you know, there'll be some probably back in Sky Australia by that point. You know, no one's rushing back into the office. It's a very gradual process. And I think, yes, there'll be the you know, sort of key people on site, but that might just be the commentators. It might be the commentators, presenters, and, you know, producer and, you know, a small truck. We're not sure on that at the moment. You know, how many cameras will we want? How many will be remote? That's all a sort of technical and production sort of side of things, which is more Georgie Fortnett, Ed Robinson, and the operation teams that are working towards bringing all sport back. So that's still to be decided. But yeah, there will be a smaller amount than usual, obviously. And I don't know as well, you know, with testing, whether you go there and would have the sort of week around the matchroom area and then leave, or whether you come and go in your own car. You know, obviously the food's important. You know, normally we're all eating and chat around sort of the catering facilities. So I think it will probably be bringing your own food and, you know, be very different. And there'll probably be very, you know, areas that you can and can't go to. I'm sure that the commentators will be socially distanced at ringside, but also we probably won't be able to go into the truck area or into the changing rooms. I don't know. There's all of that still to be organised. It's a very complex working mechanism, but it will be many less people at the beginning on site, because obviously that's the best for health and safety.
And Dave, for example, if you've got a fighter on one of these proposed cards, have you been told about, will it be the fighter and the trainer and then one other person and that's your team? Have you been told anything about that?
Well, initially, before, it's a couple of weeks back now that Eddie mentioned this to me, and it was running through ideas. Now, obviously, it's like now, between now and, we're talking about July, between now and July, a lot more things will be confirmed then. These were just ideas, and we were talking. The corner team, it's basically going to be a central corner team, I would imagine. You know, I would imagine perhaps you'll have a house second that'll be the bucket man. for all the shows. You know, you get this quite a lot on big shows anyway. You have one person that's there. If the corner team need them, then they use. If not, then they get out of the corner for that fight. But I would imagine you would have somebody there, so you're not having to bring another person of a part of the team to be that stool guy, the bucket man. So and then coach and cutman. I mean, I can see that's how it's going to have to work. You know, all the days of all these different, you know, 4 cornermen and plus whoever else, that's all going to be done. You know, obviously for big title fights, they may allow the 4 cornermen. I don't know, but when I spoke to Eddie, I was like, well, we can get away without having 4 cornermen for these events to make them work, to keep the numbers small. So maybe perhaps that'll be how it is. I mean, there's a lot of coaches that can do cuts as well as coach fighters. Now, I can, but I don't like doing that when I'm in an important fight because I want to concentrate on the fight. So cutmen are very essential for this. So we're going to have the cutmen and coaches because the coaches need to focus on the fight. The cutmen are experts at being cutmen. So, you know, that's the essentials. Now, whoever else is part of that team, are they essential or not? I don't know. I mean, I don't, you know, for a fight night, I only need myself and my cutman and somebody to put the stool in. That's it.
Mm. I think we're going to learn more as the weeks and days go on. Obviously, July.
But that's just, that's just it.
A lot can change in between that time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people jump on this idea and things like, oh, you can't do this, you can't blah. Listen, we're talking about you have to put things into place for when things start moving. Now, obviously, if you just sit there and wait until the government say, right, people can go back to work, then you have to start planning. Then things are even delayed even longer. You can't do that. There's nothing wrong in putting things into play, putting things into planning, looking how things can work, and then when the time comes that you're given the green light, right? Okay, let's go. Let's see. Everything's planned. Let's put it together. See how the planning works in practicality. And this is what's going to be done. Eddie's come up with these plans, and he's not saying definitely this is when we're starting. He can't go with a definite date until the lockdown measures have eased up to the point where we can do this. And you know, that's what we're waiting for, and that's what will happen. Ultimately, he's not deciding when the sport can come back. He's putting things into measure for when others decide that the sport can come back.
Okay, moving on from there. Johnny, I'm going to give you a little bit of props at the moment. When me, you and Adam had various discussions pre-Ruiz Joshua 2, you stated you are 100% convinced
1,000%.
1,000% convinced that Joshua would beat Ruiz. 1,000%.
Easy. Don't
never brought it up since then. Well done, Johnny, for that. Well done.
Oh, it's just how it is. Don't worry about it.
It is a leap year.
What's that? No, he was 1,000% convinced, but our argument was you couldn't be 1,000% convinced that Joshua.
But you all mock me. You ridicule me. Fans turned on me, call me stupid, like I didn't know my math. But but I had T-shirts made up. I had 50 made up. All right, I only sold 2. But that's by the by. That's nothing to do with it. What I'm saying is, I believed it. All you have to do is put his mind in. So thank you. Now I've got you all one rule. I think the fans that watch this, I think you should all send hurl abuse, the abuse that I got, give it to you, Coogie Bear, Adam. I don't think Dave was there, but give it Dave as well anyway, because he's on the call.
Well, anyway, we're glad he won.
I had no problem, Kugan. I had no problem with the prediction. I queried the 1,000%, which doesn't exist, and I also queried the fact that you are one of the biggest upsets in modern boxing happened in Madison Square Garden, and to give the other fighter who won that absolutely zero chance.
Yeah, that's more to the point, to be fair.
Yeah, but I was right.
Anyway, well done, Johnny.
Well done, Johnny.
Well done.
Thank you.
Dave, can you say a well done, Johnny? Because, you know,
come on, Dave.
Kids do something really well.
Well done. Well done.
You look at your phone, Dave. I just sent you a picture of you with hair.
I can't, cause I'm on my phone, so I can't. I'll have a look later.
Are we to now sort of dismiss any prospect to the fact of AJ Fury happening this year? I think we we're dismissing that
I
fact.
think we've got to be realistic, haven't we? We've got to be realistic, even though we'd all love it, the idea of it. As Dave said, it's about preparation. It's also about negotiation. Now parts of this negotiation have hit the public forum, but there's a lot to go down the line. And also, I gather Deontay Wilder's come out and said, basically, they've got to pay him a lot of money, and Fury said, we ain't going to pay you that. So basically, and it was down to Wilder really to say whether or not he's going to step aside or not. I'm quite sure Adam knows more of the ins and outs of that. But I think it was all down to if Wilder would step aside. I thought he'd have too much pride to step aside, even though his advisor will be telling him, no, take some step aside money, whatever. His pride won't let him do that. He's a multi-millionaire. So therefore, money is no longer that much of a driven for him. Now it's about pride, because you can see how the excuses he's used and come out with, and explanations he's come out with since losing, he's sorry to say it, delusional. So therefore, if he can't accept that, he then can't fix why he lost twice in my book. So for him to step aside, I found it slim to none. And I gather his advisors have told him, look, advised him to take the step aside, but he doesn't want to do that. So again, I think Joshua and Fury, let's be realistic, and let's probably talk spring next year, realistically, if that is the case.
Adam?
Yeah, Johnny's right. I think it won't happen this year, as much as everyone wants it to happen. I think, again, back to the sort of gradual process of bringing boxing back. It's a huge fight to organise within just months, and there's a lot of issues. Obviously, it involves huge amounts of different people. Tyson Fury's team, MTK, obviously Frank Warren, Bob Arum in the States, Eddie with AJ's team, and of course, as Johnny's mentioned, Deontay Wilder. I mean, I've been speaking and keeping in touch with Shelley Finkel and Deontay, and they want to try and right what they think was a wrong. They've looked at it, they've figured out what they believe went wrong, and they'll want their opportunity to try and regain the heavyweight championship of the world. And as much as we all want that huge mega fight to happen, I think there's positives and negatives to take out of it. You can look at it and say, right, we're going to bring boxing back, and we're going to eventually this year probably have two sort of semi-finals, as you were. You're going to have the Fury-Wilder third fight, and you're going to have Joshua and Pulev probably, hopefully, somewhere by the end of the year. And then next year, it's the steam is moving, the train is moving towards a couple of fights, I think, between AJ and Fury. And obviously, you've got to get a lot of people around a Zoom call, around a table, however it's going to happen. There's a huge amount to go through. I know Anthony wants to fight with Tyson Fury. I know Tyson wants to fight with Anthony Joshua. So that's not a problem. It's just a case of, there's Kubrat Pulev in there, there's Deontay Wilder in there. I think there's just too much to get it done this year. And also, I think, look, it was contracted, and if Wilder wants to take that fight, he should have the right to do that. So he takes on Fury, and if Fury beats him again, which most people feel, but remember, Wilder's got that power, and you never know. And Joshua's got a tough fight with Kubrat Pulev, and who knows what the lockdown's going to do and how that's going to affect them as well. So I think I think the hope is that both will come through, and that we do two next year, which will be two of the biggest fights of all time. So I think it's just a little bit of patience. I know everyone's really excited. Eddie's splashing out the huge idea of coming back in July, and I'm right behind it. We speak every day. I think it's a fantastic innovation. I can't wait to get started on it, but it is a work in progress. And I think we've got to look at Fury against Joshua as a work in progress as well. And I think the noise that's coming out of all the camps at the moment is a real willingness to get it done. And I think that's the good news for fight fans, that I can't guarantee anything, as you know, Kugan, in this sport, it's so unpredictable, but I reckon there's a 90 to 95% chance that this fight, providing they both get through their next one, will happen. And I think Johnny's right, sometime around spring.
Dave?
Yeah, it's just to echo what they're saying, really. I mean, I think with the climate and how things are right now, to even think about that this year, this fight will take place, I think it's a little bit far-fetched. I also I don't think the fight will happen in this country because of the money that will be on offer from places in the Middle East and things like that. but I would hope that it is over here. But if you want it to be over here and give it any chance of being over here, it's not going to be this year. We're not going to be able to have big 90,000 people events in this country in 2020. Let's be realistic. That's not going to be happening. You know, we're starting behind the closed doors. Then they'll start probably where you've got small gatherings. You know, maybe 1,000, a couple of thousand. But to start going up to 20 and 90,000 people in an arena this year with what's been going off, I can't see that. So if you're pushing for the fight to happen this year, you are, for me, in my opinion, you're completely ruling out the UK for this fight. It might not happen in the UK anyway, because like I said, finances dictate, but you're not giving it a chance. So by getting these two fights out of the way, and by having the hopefully the winners, Fury and Joshua, to meet next year, we're giving more opportunity and more chance for the fight to actually take place over here as well. And with the build-ups that you want, with the fight week where it's going to be absolutely nuts, you know, the media workouts, the press conferences, you don't want all that all diluted. Not for that fight, not for a fight of magnitude of that. Can you imagine, you know, how sterile it'd be? Where, you know, we're so excited about big fight weeks, everything. It's a whole week drawn out, and then you've got the event, and everything's all quiet and down because everyone's, you know, worried about COVID and there's all restrictions fully locked in place. I'd rather wait and let's get it done and have the big event that this fight deserves.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dave. I think the biggest fight that we're going to see and have seen in a long time, to kind of dilute that and have a condensed version of that. Where, if you imagine if they're doing a press conference like this, or we don't get to see kind of the frills and spills.
Yeah, especially with those two characters. I mean, the press conferences are going to be so intriguing because every press conference that Fury does, he always gets into the opponent's mind. He always gets into them. There's always a reaction. And it'd be interesting to see how AJ deals with that. And AJ is such a calm demeanour and how he is. He's, you know, it'll just be fascinating. Everything you want to see him.
I think that's a really good point, Dave, about the whole build-up. You know, we all know that when you get a huge fight, you know, even when Mayweather and Pacquiao came together, yes, the fight was poor, but the anticipation is 80% of what we all live for, isn't it? And what we all towards the build-up. And you can learn so much during those build-ups in training camps, and the gloves are off, and all those types of things, press conferences. And I think, you know, a bit of patience here is what we need. And I think that there's no question that, you know, they're, providing they both win, they're going to end up fighting each other. I think that's a gimme. We don't know where it's going to be. We don't quite know when it's going to be, but I think it will happen. And I think we have to have every opportunity to make it as, in quotes, normal as possible, I think, for a big fight like that.
I'm going to put you all on the spot now. Who do we currently favour to win that fight? I'll start with Johnny.
Why would you do that? Why me?
Because you said 1,000%.
Because you've been on Tinder for the last hour while we've
You're the guru.
Did you say Tinder?
What? No.
I don't know, but he's been looking away, hasn't he, a lot?
Yes, he's been very...
My dogs are trying to get now. All right, okay then. So you look on past form, I think, and I know I've not changed at all. I think Tyson Fury technically is the one that's head and shoulders above all of the top 10 heavyweights there. But I think Anthony Joshua is a guy that is an all-rounder where you can't. I know Tyson Fury absolutely blitz Deontay Wilder, but let's be honest. Deontay Wilder, all he ever had was that punch, and that's it. Technically, you'd look at him and think, "Wow, you are so wrong." But that punch always saved him. So Tyson Fury, it was like taking candy from a baby. When you had all the tools, all the ammunition to do what you had to do. Now he's getting in with Anthony Joshua, who can box as well as punch as well as fight. So therefore, it's not going to be as easy to dissect and take Anthony Joshua apart. I'm not going to say 1,000% because I wouldn't say 1,000. Even though I would use that line, I would favour Tyson Fury, but I wouldn't write off Anthony Joshua devising something or enticing Fury into his kind of battle. And because Anthony Joshua's proved he has the intelligence to condense learning something and changing his style and adapting a formula to win a fight. So on the whole, I'd say 51 Tyson Fury, 49 Anthony Joshua. Was that hard?
No, it's not. It's good. It's good. Well done. Sky employee doesn't back Matchroom fighter is the headline. Brilliant. Love it, John.
All right. Let's see what these two say.
I'm not asking, like I said, same really what I've just said to Johnny. I'm not saying to you who definitely wins or who 1,000% wins, but who do you favour in the fight? Adam?
Listen, you've heard me say many times, Kugan, how much I respect Tyson Fury, and the fact that I think Tyson Fury's comeback from where he was is one of the most incredible stories we've ever had in our sport. I was there ringside the last massive fight before lockdown. He was incredible from start to finish. He told us what he was going to do, if you believe the manner of victory, but it was an absolute ripping apart of Deontay Wilder. I was so impressed with him, and I think that you've got to say there that he is the man in form. He is the man to beat. Having said that, if you looked at June last year and what happened to Anthony Joshua, you'd say Tyson Fury, every day of the week. But he's an incredible physical athlete, very mentally strong, AJ, and the way that he came back and proved Johnny right with that 1,000%. He was brilliant in Saudi, executing a game plan, and he's got a phenomenal guy in his corner who's always been there, still underrated, I believe, Robert McCracken, one of the very best in the business. And he's got something about him, Joshua, that is a real competitor. So I think I tend to actually, and I disagree with him a lot, my old ringside companion, but I tend to agree with him here. I think that, Tyson Fury would probably start the slight favourite. I think that, he has got the boxing ability and the size and the calmness in a ring, I think, and now showing a little bit of power as well, under Sugar Hill and the great work Ben Davison did with him, that, you've got to probably fancy him as a favourite going in. But I think it's a really hard fight to call. I think that Joshua's got much more about him structurally than Deontay Wilder. I think he hits hard, maybe not as hard as Wilder with a single punch, but I think he's very strong. He's proved he can get up off the floor. He's got a huge heart. But could he be outboxed by Fury? Yes, he could be. I think it's a fascinating fight, but I agree with Johnny. I just at the moment probably slightly lean towards Fury, but with no great confidence either way. And I think it's one that you probably want to see 2-3 times. It's a great matchup, isn't it? And I think it wouldn't surprise me if Joshua's style was all wrong for Fury, actually, and that he found a way to construct a victory over him. But Fury's the most naturally talented of the boxers in the heavyweight division, and has been for a while, I think. But sometimes he blows hot and cold. He wasn't great, was he, in those couple of fights in the comeback, and then he was floored heavily in that 12th round by Wilder. He shouldn't have got through that, but he did. I thought he won the fight, even though it was a draw. He's the man in form, but then Joshua was brilliant in Saudi. So maybe we need the Pulev fight and the third Wilder fight before we can really make a better prediction. But I think Johnny's got it about right
there. David?
Yeah, do you know what? It's one of those fights where just because you can see how both men can win a fight doesn't mean that you're sitting on the fence. The thing for me is that both men in their last fight showed a different dimension to themselves to what we've seen before. AJ with his boxing skills, he's floating around the ring. Just he boxed beautiful. It was a brilliant boxing performance. But then Fury going the other way, from being this tricky, awkward fighter on the back foot, all of a sudden just dominating, going forward, looking so sturdy, looking so so well balanced and in such great coordination, being an aggressive fighter and backing Wilder up, doing it so well. For me, I'll be honest with you, I can't see how. All I want to see is one thing controlling a guy that's down here. You've got the height and the reach, all the physical advantages over him, the mobility, and be able to box and keep him at range and outbox him. But I'm right. I think I'm right in saying that Tyson Fury's a little bit taller than Joshua. He's got the longer arm. He's got the range. He is very, very long and tall and big. He's good at getting older, leaning onto you and using his physicalities. Now, if Fury chooses to box in a similar fashion to what he did in the Wild rematch and put AJ on the back foot, which I think he will, then the energy and the consumption of fuel that AJ is going to be under pressure, moving as the smaller man, trying to outbox that smaller man, that taller, bigger man. I think that might be draining. And for me, I can't see AJ outboxing Fury in that style. And don't get me wrong, I believe he will be a better fighter, a better boxer with another camp in the Pulev fight where he's going to be working on those certain tactics, and then going into another camp of Fury, he's going to be a better boxer. But Fury's going to be better at what he's doing going forward, what he started learning and started adjusting to as well. And I just, because Fury's more, I feel that he's more natural as a fighter. AJ is a great athlete, and he's learned how to box, and he's learned how to fight, he's learned how to box. I think AJ's chance and opportunity in this fight is if he gets into that range where he can let go his hands in combination. Because as a combination fighter, for a big man, he puts his hands together really, really well, and he can catch fighters in those spots. And we've seen that when Fury gets hurt, when he gets hit, he does get hurt. You know, he's what I feel a lot of these giants is because they're not used to getting hit much, because they're so much taller than people that they spar with or they usually fight with. When you do get to them, they're not comfortable with it. They're not used to that as much. And Fury when he has been tagged, he does react. But then also the problem that you've got is AJ, to me, is when, even in the Ruiz rematch, there was a couple of seconds where remember when we sat ringside and AJ just started looking as though he was holding his feet that little bit, and Ruiz had just glanced and catch a shot off him, and you see the reaction. You see the reaction. There was a little, I forget what round it was, a little stage where his legs just seemed a little bit, a little bit off balance, and he grabbed hold. He learned how to tie up and grab hold and smother, then get back to his boxing. With Fury's range and the size of him and the reach, I can't see how he's not going to get caught with those sort of shots. I can't see how when he tries to hold, or even if Fury lands a shot and then holds, I can't see how Fury's physicality isn't going to have an effect on AJ's legs and AJ's demeanour. I think it's a very tough fight for AJ. It's a fight that I think he can win, but I would lean towards Tyson Fury, because I just think that he right now just seems to be the best heavyweight on the planet. I think, like Johnny said, AJ's got a very good brain where he can pick things up and he can learn. But for me, when Fury's been, I look at Fury's career, I look at AJ's career. I've far more enjoyed watching AJ's career all the way through, but the fights where Fury's up against it, where we expect it to be a tough fight, the Chisora rematch, Vladimir Klitschko, the Wilder fights, they're where he seems to kick in, and this mentality and that marries up with his physicalities just slots right in, and he puts on a hell of a performance. When it's a fight where he's supposed to win all the way through his career, where he's supposed to win and it's just a formality or whatever, then he don't look so good. With a fight with Anthony Joshua, he mentally going to be so up there, really is. And both men are, but that's what makes it such a great fight. But I would have to say that Fury's the favourite, Joshua's a very live underdog. That's how I would read it.
KUGAN, I think Dave makes some excellent points there. Tyson does sort of lift himself, doesn't he, to the occasion. But I do think as well that the way Joshua came back after the Ruiz defeat, when everyone was sort of questioning everything,
yeah.
and I thought his legs, his feet were phenomenal that night. I really did. I thought he boxed brilliantly, and he learned. He went back to the drawing board, and so I just don't think we can. We certainly can't. I mean, it would not surprise me if Joshua beats Fury, but I think you've got to say that on form and everything you look, and on size and on boxing ability, that Fury has got to start the favourite in this fight. But we might learn more from the Wilder third fight and Pulev, but let's hope in many ways both of them, are spectacular in those, and it sets it up, because we're going to turn the tables on you, KUGAN. What do you think?
Oh, good shot, Az.
He's going to stay neutral.
Huh?
His signals.
Oh! It's like that.
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah.
Huh?
Anthony Joshua is a Sky fighter and a Sky ambassador, and we absolutely adore him. But we've just given you a real close look at why we think Tyson Fury.
My game. You're not on Sky Sports now, so you play my game. I don't answer you do. But I do think you make a good point about there's a massive difference if they were both going into the fight this year, as in their next fight, as opposed to AJ going through the Pulev test and also Fury going through the Wilder test. Because I know it's easy for us to say, yeah, he's going to beat him again, but you don't know. That's not a given that Fury would 100% beat Wilder with someone as live as Wilder. So that fight in between could tell us a lot about how that fight shapes up for next year.
It's a year to the day of Dominic Breazeale, and that right hand can, if it hits you, and Tyson felt that in the first fight. So you just don't know in boxing. The likelihood is that Fury comes through it, of course, but you can't say not. And also, Pulev is going to be so up for this Joshua fight, and he's tough. Joshua should, I think, win by sort of a mid-late stoppage, but you don't know.
I think with Tyson, I think I wouldn't expect. I'd be very surprised if he lost to Wilder in the third fight. I'd be very surprised. The reason being is because the first Tyson Fury fight, nobody gave him a chance. Physically, he wasn't near the specimen he was in the second fight. Mentally either. And look what he did. He just didn't get the decision when he rightfully should have done. When he was on form, and when Wilder did know what to expect, Wilder trained like a madman for fight number 2. Look what Tyson Fury did to him. So it just shows how above him, in head and shoulder above him, he is in technical ability. And so with that, I wouldn't actually worry about that. Again, I'll just repeat what I said. Basically, Anthony Joshua's got to devise a game plan, which we know he's well and capable of doing. He's mentally strong enough to do it. He's got a good team around him. He's got the good mindset for it to dissect, to get through, to ruffle Tyson Fury's feathers. If he doesn't, Tyson Fury wins because he proved that he's capable of doing that when he's on form. And I'm quite sure none of these two will go into this missing anything out, thinking, it's an easy job, as we assume Wilder did in the first Tyson Fury fight. So both of them will be on top form, and both will get the best sparring, both will get the best preparation. So barring the injuries inside inside training camp, this will all be about game plan.
Can I just say, when you touched on sparring, do you know how hard it is to get a giant that can be as mobile and as tricky and as smart as what Tyson Fury is? There isn't many out there. And so when we're talking about preparation for sparring, if I'm looking at both fighters, I would find it easier to prepare for an Anthony Joshua style of fighter than I would for Fury, because with Fury can box southpaw and orthodox. So you've got to cover both facets just in case he decides to go southpaw for a while. But the problem is with big men, what you get is you get these big giants, so you need them for the height and the size and things like that. But then they're slow. The majority of them are slow.
But actually, Dave, what I do? I'd actually get cruiserweights and light heavyweights. Southpaws.
Oh yeah, I understand. I understand that. But you've got. This is where they're gonna have to get all different types of fighters in for sure. But I'll go back to what I was saying again. To outbox and to control the range and everything with a guy like Andy Ruiz, who's so much shorter, is so much easier, than to do it with a guy that's so much bigger. And there isn't many fighters out there that control the distance and the range as well as what Tyson Fury does. Whether he's on that back foot or whether what we saw against Wilder, the distance and the range that he controlled against Wilder, who is a tall man, who is a big man. Once you control that, you can take away what the opponents are good at. And Fury's very, very good at that. If I look at both fighters, he's the one that controls the range and the distance far better out of the two men. There's not many men that can do that in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, so for training camp, I know training camp for the both of them, it'll be harder. It should be harder for Anthony Joshua than it should be for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury knows what he has in front of him. If I was Rob McCracken, I'd have 2 sparring partners in the ring every round, 1 southpaw, 1 orthodox. I'd switch him over intermittently when AJ has no idea, right? Switch, turn, and so he's got to adapt halfway through. So then It's how you prepare an orthodox fighter for an unorthodox fighter. You know, Dave, our gym was full of unorthodox fighters, so we're used to every shape, size, and everything. So you've got to bring that unpredictability to Anthony Joshua's preparation for him to come close to being in the mix when it comes to fight time, because it's going to be a bag of tricks when he gets in the ring with Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury likes the art of surprise. Am I going to come out southpaw? Am I going to come out orthodox? Am I going to box offensively or defensively? So therefore, training camp has to be harder than the fight for Anthony Joshua. Yeah. 2 different sparring partners each round. Each round, I don't mean you have him this round, I mean 2 in 1 round, 1.5 minutes each, split him up. And so he always has to stay on his toes. He's going to get hurt. It might even get dropped. But you know what? He'll learn so much. And by the time he gets into fight Tyson Fury, that fight will be so much easier than training. And that, to me, gives him a better chance of dealing with such an unorthodox fighter.
Johnny, do you know what the fascinating thing really is about? It's about the unpredictability of Tyson Fury as well, because we've seen him blow hot and cold. John McDermott all those years ago, and even recently in the last couple of years, performances that you thought, really, and you just wonder, will everything catch up with him? And you just don't know. I mean, he was superb against Wilder last time. Can he continue that form? Does he want it every time? Sure, he'll be massively.
But shall I tell you what?
Massively up for Joshua fight. Of course he will, but you don't know. You never know quite what will happen when Tyson Fury gets in a ring. Whereas you do know what Anthony Joshua brings to the table. He's very robust. He's very strong. He's very, very disciplined. And I don't know. I think it's a really tough one. And I think that that's why it will lend itself to 2, maybe 3 fights.
I think Tyson Fury struggles with complacency. So when he thinks he's got your number, when he knows he's got your number.
So he's got Joshua's number?
He doesn't. He thinks he has. But so if he's so complacent, think I've got his number, it's easy. The fight becomes hard.
What's Anthony thinking? Because they talk.
He knows. Anthony Joshua's not an idiot. He knows it's a hard fight. Ron McCracken is a smart cookie, and he'll drum it into him. Listen, you cannot mess about on this. Even now, since the last fight, since the first Andy Ruiz fight, Anthony Joshua has now becoming a student of the game, because he's got to catch up with Tyson Fury, who knows the history of our sport, who loves to fight, who loves to box just for fun. So the Tyson Fury's Achilles heel is complacency. If he's ever complacently thinks I've got your number, that's when he performs under par. When he feels there's a threat in front of him, when he's classed as the underdog, that's when he comes out and puts on a performance like he did against Deontay Wilder. So therefore, we need they both need to understand the dangers that they're both in. And this is the problem. If Tyson Fury gets too complacent, saying it's going to be so easy, we could see a bad performance. He'd be an idiot if he did. I'd be very surprised if his coaches let him do that. But these are the risks for both fighters.
Right, just a final point, because you lot have given me a lot of your time, and I'm sure you've got more interesting things to do. Dylan White, do we think what's going on at the moment will delay his mandatory situation, which is in February 2021?
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Listen, how many times do we hear Dylan White's name being mentioned out of all this what's happening? Not once. Dylan White is having to create dramas with Parkers and people like that. Nobody's putting him in the mix, with Fury, AJ and Wilder. Nobody's conveniently forgetting him. So he's still banging out the door, trying to put himself in a position, even considering doing MMA, because he is that man that we think you want to forget about him for a while. Let's just talk about something else. He's the bogeyman. So unfortunately for Dylan White, he's always going to be on the back foot. And even though Eddie represents him, I personally think Eddie could push him as much as he does AJ. Could put him up front as much as he does, put him in that mix. But unfortunately, Eddie has AJ as well, so therefore he's got to deal with where the big business is, and say to White, all right, son, I'm going to give you a hand here, but his main interest will be with Anthony Joshua. That's just how it is. It's not speaking ill of anybody. That's just business.
Adam?
Yeah, I feel sorry for Dillian in a way. I think he's done everything that's been asked of him. He's taken on, very, very tough assignments over the last few years. He's been brilliant, hasn't he, since the defeat, and a dramatic defeat and a dramatic fight it was with Anthony Joshua all those years ago. He had the difficulties, out of the ring last year. He's come through that. He's He's locked himself away in Portugal. He's training for a date he doesn't even know when it's happening. Yeah, and I know that's the same for every fighter at the moment. But yeah, he just hasn't had the sort of rub of the green. But that's Dillian for you. You know, Dillian is a fighter. He says it the way it is. That's why people like him. That's why people have a lot of time for Dillian White. He's exciting in a ring. We want to see the Povetkin fight. I think he's just got to keep going and taking on the sort of the biggest fights he can. I think he wants to be remembered as an entertaining fighter. Obviously, it's about money, and he wants to get the big paydays as well. But you know, he is. He's the one that certainly, if you're Joshua or Fury or Wilder, you're just keeping to one side at the moment. He doesn't bring enough to the table. He doesn't have a world title belt around him. He deserves that opportunity for a fight for a world championship. I have no doubt about that, and I'm sure he will get it. But the way we're talking, you know, of Joshua Pulev happening, and maybe that won't happen until the back end of the year. You know, you've got the Wilder fight, and then if they're going to make Joshua Fury for the undisputed, if that all happens a couple of times next year, you wonder where Dillian is going to get that opportunity, or whether belts will get fragmented and he'll get a chance another way. But I think a shot at Fury or Joshua is looking, you know, more unlikely at the moment. But he's just got to keep going. I think the most important thing for Dillian is that he gets into that ring in 100%. You know, not like he was out in Saudi. I think he's got to be. I think he's already looking phenomenal out in Portugal, and I'm sure when the Povetkin fight comes, the call comes, say it's in August, he'll be absolutely ready. I expect him to come through a tough fight, and then, you know, he'll be back, and maybe he'll be first back of the big boys, and he'll just remind people what he's all about. And he's just got to keep knocking at the door and hoping that, you know, something will come of it, because I do believe that Dillian White can become a world champion if he gets the opportunity. But I just think the world wants to see, you know, these other fights first. That's the problem.
Dave?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the guys have pretty much covered that. I feel sorry for Dillian. You know, he is who needs him club, and he's taking real fights. So although he's not getting the belt that he wants, he's getting the fans' respect, because the fans love him, because he's taking most fighters, when they get into that position where it's just a matter of time before they get a world title shot, they will take softer fights. He's taking real fights, danger fights that are going to entertain the fans and put himself in danger. So he's got a respect off the fans, and the fans love him for that. My worry for Dillian is that is he going to be that fighter where he's ready for his world title shot now, but by the time he gets it, because like Adam said, you know, we're talking about Pulev, we're talking about Wilder, then we're talking about AJ and Fury. Maybe that's going to be 2 fights. When's he going to get his shot? You know, you're talking about 2022. He'll have gone off the boil. For me, you know, that's a long period of time for somebody that's been fighting at that level, with the fights that he's been having and taking the punishment he's been having, and you know, that's a long time for him to go, still trying to hold his peak of his career before he starts, you know, dipping a little bit. And so that's my worry for Dillian. But unfortunately, it's like Johnny said.
Johnny's still listening. He's out the window, Dave, when you're talking about it.
I was trying to escape.
It's business, and you know, the AJ business is the biggest business in boxing. The money that generates, the AJ and Fury business, is absolutely humongous. So you can't compete with that. Although he deserves to get a title shot, is he going to get that? Is he going to get that shot before those fights are made? I can't see it. I can't see it.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you get on with your day. Johnny has been getting on with his day anyway, regardless of what he was doing today.
You don't understand. I've just planted some tomato plants. The dogs are digging it up. You know, I'm proper green fingers king here. So
the dog's vegan.
No, that's not. He's eating my tomatoes. He's digging my stuff up. I'm just saying. I'm still masculine, even though I like digging tomatoes and that and things. But just making sure there's
your final words, just wrap it up for us. Just a message to people watching, obviously, stay positive, stay safe, and let's hope for better times. Johnny, do you want to finish?
I think I'm loving what the promoters are doing. Both promoters, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn with Matchroom, which is giving us hope, giving us something to look forward to. I'm a former fighter. I'm still a fight fan. I'm fortunate enough to be in the business, and I know how frustrating it is for fans as well. But give it time. Be patient. Boxing will always come back no matter what. So just be patient, because when we do come back, we'll come back with a bang.
Dave?
Yeah, just the same. You know, I'm excited to get things going again. You know, we've all listened, we've all stayed locked in, and you know, the majority of us have helped to put a, you know, try and put a lid on this situation. We're coming out the other side now, regardless of how long it's going to take to get back to normality. I think we've gone through the tough side. We're coming out the other side, and we've just got to keep positive and keep focus on something positive instead of knocking every idea down, and instead of knocking people that are trying to do things and trying to make things work. Let's get behind it. Let's have a bit of optimism about it, and things are going to happen. And boxing will be back soon. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Final word from Adam Smith.
Absolutely. I mean, first, most important thing, everybody stays safe out there and healthy. All the fighters I've spoken to are, are training incredibly hard, mentally and physically. They're keeping strong. This is obviously Mental Health Awareness Week as well. It's important to look after yourself, and I think that they're great. You know, as I said, Dillian out in Portugal, Katie Taylor in America. You know, all the ones that I've spoken to can't wait to come back. And you know, that's the good thing I think about fighters is that they go through isolated periods in their career, and they know how they can keep themselves together. So I think as athletes, I think the men and women will come back probably stronger than most other sports. So that's a positive. Boxing will come back, as Johnny says. You know, we're in the fight business, and we're a sport that fights back, and we're used to unpredictability and drama and differences in the way our sort of routine works. And I think that, come July, August, we'll have fighters back in a ring. It will be very different. I think it will be, a long time, as Dave rightly said earlier, before we see the big crowds back. But, let's take it baby steps at a time. The sport will come back. People will be chomping at the bit for it. And I think that we'll get to see some great fights because I think people will be drawn together a bit quicker. And I think that, ultimately, as we sort of turn into 2021, which I think could be one of the biggest years we've ever had in boxing, I think that's a real positive. I just think we have to have a bit of patience, gradual steps towards it, bit of collaboration as well. Johnny mentioned Frank and Eddie giving us hope. It might be that we all need to sort of group together as the boxing community, before everyone starts fighting out again and, work together. And I think certainly the biggest fight of all in Fury, Joshua Fury, 1, 2, 3, however many we have, is going to need that collaboration to make that work. And I think there's a lot of intent there at the moment. So just be patient and we'll be back. And as Johnny says, we'll be back with a bang.
Let's hope so. Johnny, do you think you could just log off for a minute so Enzo Macronelli can join us?
Wow. Really?
Thank God. A decent cruiserweight. Yeah. Let's get Enzo on.
Can you... no, he's not really on. Shout out, Enzo.
He would have knocked Johnny out as well because Johnny's meeting gone and everything. Everything was gone. He was packed up. Enzo could bang, and you know that, Nelson. But you would have beaten Glenn. Glenn would have been all over you for the first 3 rounds. You would have caught up with Glenn, but you wouldn't have caught up with Enzo. You'd have been staring up at the lights, my friend, with those knees.
So Sunday night, I had a Johnny Nelson evening. So I put a few of Glenn's fights on. I put an Enzo McInerney fights on. Put a few of mine on. And I put me
Honestly, Liam, did anyone watch that? Did anyone watch that during lockdown? That's the one to make sure we all sleep sweetly. And on that
Johnny,
I gotta go, mate. I gotta go, man. I'm out of here.
Johnny, just tell these two to not look at your face. Just have a look behind you. See what's up on that wall, mate. Just tell them that. Just tell them that.
Man.
Then wear their belts on, mate.
What's the love? The love, Dave. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Only go back to your tomatoes. See you later.
Johnny, Adam, Dave, thank you very much. Keep yourself safe and we'll speak soon, yeah?
See you 1 o'clock, guys.
See you later, guys.
See you later.
See you later.